Patrick Murphy, former Democrat Pennsylvania congressman, and Republican strategist Aaron McGuire. Aaron, I'm going to start with you. Look, I don't know how many people still listen to James Carville, but what he's saying there is stop with this, because law enforcement hate has never worked for Democrats. And this is the tip of the spear, ICE.
It is the tip of the spear, and this is something that if you go back, Democrats have espoused for years now, whether it is defund the police or any version of that. Now they are moving it to federal law enforcement. And you know what people want? They want safe communities. They want to be able to go to church and not be accosted by violent protesters. They want to be able to safely move through their streets with knowing that criminals like child rapists and pedophiles and murderers are off their streets. But instead, Democrats are doubling down on stupid and dumb rhetoric that says that law enforcement is the problem here. No, the problem is unsafe communities and criminals, and those are who they should be going after, not the great men and women of law enforcement who are doing their jobs to keep their communities safe.
Look, Patrick, last week we talked all about that Third Way memo, and Third Way, of course, is that Democrat think tank, and what they were saying is, no, you can't use this rhetoric. It's like defund the police. It's not going to work. But they are all in. Why is that in your party?
Yeah, listen, they say, Harris, that history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And I agree with former Marine James Carville in that we got to make sure that ICE is obviously oversight. And we saw what happened last week with Renee Good, and it's a tragic instance, right? So let's learn from that. But most importantly, let's make sure that we honor the solemn duty of our government, and that is to keep our families safe. And law enforcement, like my father for 22 years in Philadelphia, like I did when I served in the Army, you have to build that trust and rapport when you are protecting and serving.
Aaron, I'm going to come back to you and back to really who the leadership and the voices are in the Democrat Party. I mean, James Carville keeps stepping into the fold. And Patrick, I think you would agree on this. So where are those voices, and are there any that can deal with the far left?
You would hope there are voices in the Democrat Party who can deal with the far left, but unfortunately for the Democrats, that far left progressive part of the party, that's their base. That is the part of the party that Kamala Harris said would make sure that they didn't want Josh Shapiro on this ticket. There is a very darkness to the very far progressive left of the Democrat Party, and they didn't want Josh Shapiro because he was Jewish. This is a party that has a massive reckoning in it, and I don't know where those sane voices are. I hope they are someone like a Josh Shapiro who can step up and not only call out the anti-Semitic rhetoric, but the anti-law enforcement, anti-community safety rhetoric that you continue to see out of Democrats. But when Democrats do stand up and push back against their own, they're resoundingly chased out of the party. And that's a big problem that Democrats are going to have to face. Are they going to be this extreme radical party of anti-law enforcement, anti-community safety, or are they going to put their heads on straight and say, we should protect our communities? I guess it's up to the leadership, but who leads the Dems these days? Who knows?
Patrick, before I come back to you, more James Carville, because the point I'm making is that his voice, I guess he's going to represent you all now. Let's watch about what he says in November.
Frankly, it's going to be a wipeout. Your viewers need to know that the Democrats are going to pick up at a minimum 25 seats, maybe as high as 45.
RNC Chair Joe Gruters is equally confident in his own party.
I think we have a great opportunity to defy history. Obviously, 4 times in the last 150 years, the incumbent party has been successful. I think the President of the United States is our secret weapon. He has already said he's going to barnstorm the country with our candidates. He's laser focused.
A new poll shows Democrats do hold an advantage over Republicans on the generic ballot. But that same survey shows Americans believe Republicans are best able to address most major issues, border security, to immigration, and to the economy. What's your thought about moving forward, Patrick? I mean, if you toy too much with these areas where Republicans will always have that upper hand, it would seem, while Trump is in office, you can't win in November.
Yeah, and they're coming off a loss. And what I would say to Harris is that you have to earn that trust. And that Wall Street polling, I read that poll, shows that the Democrats, they're not happy with President Trump. They want border security. They don't understand why when Minnesota is the 32nd most safe sending 3,000 ICE agents. But the bottom line is that just because they're not happy with that doesn't mean they're not going to go to the Democratic side. We have to earn that trust. And we have to come together as Americans to make sure we're keeping our communities safe. And people don't feel safe there. And, part of that is because they've had the surge. And, look at Minneapolis. There's 400,000 people there, Harris. And we just sent 3,000 ICE agents. We need to lower the temperature. And
you know that they only have a few hundred cops, though? I mean, look, police have been leaving their jobs there, and they're doing it. I mean, it's happening here in New York City, 300 a month, I read. Look, there's a problem about having illegal criminals on the ground and also having to go back after all of the recidivists who are on the ground from soft on soft